Officer Daniels was having a normal, quiet morning. The sun had just started to rise, and the streets of the small town looked peaceful. Birds were singing softly in the trees, and the air smelled fresh, like the beginning of a new day. The neighborhood was calm, and the only sounds came from a few kids getting ready for school or parents leaving for work. Daniels liked these peaceful mornings because it gave him a chance to relax and enjoy his patrol without much trouble. He was driving slowly in his police car, looking out at the familiar houses and gardens. The grass was wet with morning dew, and everything seemed perfect. But suddenly, everything changed. Out of nowhere, a small boy came running at full speed from a narrow alley between two buildings. The boy looked scared and was crying loudly. His small feet were bare, and his clothes looked dirty and torn. The boy's face was red and wet with tears as he ran toward Daniels without stopping. Daniels quickly stopped the car and got out. He didn't know the boy, but he could see that something was very wrong. The boy didn't hesitate and ran straight up to the officer. He grabbed hold of Daniels' leg tightly. The boy was crying so hard that he could barely speak. Daniels knelt down and tried to calm him. "Hey, little one, what's wrong? Are you hurt? What's your name?" he asked gently. But the boy couldn't answer. His whole body was shaking, and his sobs were so loud they filled the quiet street. As the boy leaned closer to Daniels, the officer noticed something strange. The front of the boy's shirt was wet, but it wasn't from sweat or tears. When Daniels looked carefully, he saw blood soaking through the fabric. His heart started to beat faster, and a cold feeling went through his body. He carefully pulled the shirt aside to see what was going on underneath. What he saw made him freeze. The boy's chest was covered with dark bruises and raw red marks. Some of the bruises looked old, dark purple and blue, while others were fresh and red. There were scratches and what looked like handprints. It was clear that the boy had been hurt badly, and not by accident. The injuries looked painful and serious. Daniels felt his face go pale. He was used to seeing accidents and small injuries in his job, but this was different. This was something cruel, something done on purpose. He quickly took out his radio and called for backup and medical help. "This is Officer Daniels. I have a child here with serious injuries. I need an ambulance at my location immediately." While waiting for the ambulance, Daniels stayed close to the boy, holding his hand gently. The boy's name was Ethan. Slowly, through tears, Ethan began to say small things. "I live with Daddy," he said quietly. "Daddy gets mad a lot." Daniels could see how scared Ethan still was. His eyes looked around nervously, as if he expected someone dangerous to come after him. Some neighbors started to come out of their houses, curious about the commotion. They watched quietly but didn't say much. Daniels tried to ask them if they knew anything about Ethan or where he lived, but no one seemed to have clear answers. The house Ethan came from was on the corner of the street, an old, run-down place, with broken windows and peeling paint. It didn't look like a happy home. When the ambulance arrived, Daniels helped Ethan into the vehicle. The boy was still crying but was starting to feel a little safer with the medical team. Daniels stayed with him all the way to the hospital. But even before they left, Daniels wanted to know more about where Ethan came from and what had happened. Daniels and the officers went to Ethan's house to investigate. The place was dark and smelled strange. Inside, it was worse than anyone had expected. There was trash everywhere, broken furniture, and the air felt heavy and cold. They found a small room hidden behind a locked door. The lock was on the outside, making it clear that someone had been kept inside against their will. It was heartbreaking to think that Ethan had been kept in that small, locked room. The signs of neglect were everywhere. The officers knew this was a serious case of abuse and neglect. They called Child Protective Services to take over and make sure Ethan would be safe from now on. Even though Daniels was trained for difficult situations, this case hit him hard. He couldn't stop thinking about the little boy's frightened eyes and the pain Ethan must have felt. He promised himself to do everything he could to protect Ethan and help him heal. At the hospital, doctors checked Ethan carefully. They confirmed that his injuries were serious but treatable. They said he would need time and care to recover fully. Daniel stayed nearby, watching as the boy slowly started to calm down. It was a long day filled with questions and sadness, but also hope. Hope that Ethan's life would soon change for the better. After the ambulance took Ethan to the hospital, Officer Daniels stayed close by. He knew the boy was scared and hurt, but he also knew Ethan needed someone who cared. The boy was quiet now, still trembling, but less crying than before. Daniels sat beside him, holding his small hand gently, trying to make Ethan feel safe. The bright lights and white walls of the hospital were strange to the boy, and every sound seemed loud and frightening. Daniels whispered soft words to calm him. Ethan's chest was covered with bandages, but the bruises underneath were still clear to see. The doctors had told Daniels the injuries were severe. They said Ethan was lucky to be alive. Some of the bruises were old, which meant the abuse had been happening for a long time. Other marks were fresh, showing the violence had continued until very recently. The doctor explained that Ethan's broken body was a sign of a secret life, full of pain and fear. Daniels wanted to understand everything about Ethan's story. Slowly, as Ethan became more comfortable, the boy started to speak little by little. He told Daniels that he lived with his father, Marcus Hale. The boy's voice was small and shaky. "Daddy is mad a lot," he said. "Sometimes he yells and hits me. I didn't want to be there anymore." Ethan's words were like broken pieces of a sad puzzle. Daniels listened carefully, not pushing the boy too hard, but making sure he knew it was okay to talk. The boy told him that he didn't have many friends and that he was often locked in a small room inside their house. "It was dark and cold," Ethan said. "I was scared and alone." Daniels felt a deep sadness. He couldn't imagine how a small child could live in such fear every day. He wanted to protect Ethan from the world that had hurt him so badly. Meanwhile, the neighbors had gathered near Ethan's old house. Many of them looked worried but didn't speak openly. When Daniels asked them about the family, they gave quiet answers. "We heard yelling sometimes," one neighbor said softly. "But Marcus is a dangerous man. Nobody wanted to get involved." Another neighbor said they rarely saw Ethan outside. "He stayed inside a lot, and the house always looked locked." The house itself was in poor condition. The paint was chipped and peeling, the windows were dirty, and the garden was overgrown with weeds. It was clear the family was isolated from the rest of the neighborhood. Daniels and the other officers went inside the house carefully. The air inside was thick and heavy with a smell no one wanted to describe. They found broken furniture, empty food cans, and trash scattered across the floor. It was clear no one had been taking care of the place. In the back of the house, behind a locked door, they found the small room where Ethan had been kept. The lock was on the outside, preventing him from leaving. The walls were dirty and cracked. There was only a thin, dirty mattress on the floor. Daniels felt his heart break, looking at the space where the little boy had spent so many lonely hours. Child Protective Services arrived quickly to take over the case. They moved Ethan to a safer place and began the long process of helping him heal. Daniels knew that this was just the beginning. At the hospital, doctors and nurses took great care of Ethan. They cleaned and dressed his wounds and gave him medicine for the pain. They said he needed to rest and get stronger before he could speak. More about what had happened. Daniels visited Ethan every day. He brought toys and books, hoping to bring a little light into the boy's dark world. Ethan slowly started to smile sometimes, especially when Daniels told funny stories or played games with him. Meanwhile, Daniels worked with detectives to learn more about Marcus Hale. They found out Marcus had a troubled past, with some criminal records and history of violence. Marcus was unemployed and lived alone with Ethan since the boy's mother had died 2 years ago. The mother's death was mysterious, and no one had clear answers about what really happened. The detectives talked to neighbors, searched for evidence, and tried to understand how Ethan had been left alone in such a terrible situation for so long. It was hard to believe that no one had stopped the abuse sooner. Daniels felt angry and frustrated. He thought about how many chances Marcus had to change, but he never did. He wondered why the community had stayed silent. He promised himself that he would do everything to make sure Ethan would be safe from now on. The investigation uncovered disturbing evidence. In Marcus's house, police found videos showing some of the punishments Marcus gave Ethan. The recordings were cruel and heartbreaking to watch. It was clear Marcus was dangerous and did not care about the boy's pain. Marcus was arrested and charged with many crimes, including child abuse and neglect. The court case would be difficult, but everyone hoped that justice would be done. Through all this, Ethan showed quiet strength. Though he was scared, he kept going. He started therapy to help him heal his mind and heart. He had trouble sleeping and often woke up crying. Loud noises made him jump, but slowly, with care and love, he began to trust people again. Daniels continued to support Ethan, becoming more than just an officer to the boy. He became a friend and protector. Daniels visited Ethan at the foster home, bringing gifts and spending time with him. The bond between them grew stronger every day. Ethan started to talk more about his dreams and hopes. He wanted to go to school and play with other children. He wanted to feel safe and happy again. The story of Ethan's escape and rescue spread through the town. Many people were shocked and sad, but they also wanted to help. Some neighbors volunteered to support child protection programs. Others joined Daniels in raising awareness about child abuse. Ethan's journey was difficult, but it was also a story of hope and courage. With Daniels and the community behind him, the boy was beginning a new chapter in his life, one filled with care, love, and safety. After Ethan was safe and beginning to recover in the hospital, the investigation into his father, Marcus Hale, became the center of attention for Officer Daniels and the local police detectives. It was clear to everyone that Marcus was responsible for the terrible injuries Ethan had suffered. But to truly protect Ethan and bring justice, they had to understand Marcus fully, his past, his actions, and how long the abuse had been going on. The detectives began by searching public records and police databases. They found that Marcus had a history of violent behavior and had been arrested several times before, mostly for domestic disturbances and petty crimes. But somehow, he had never been caught or punished severely for child abuse. This troubled Daniels deeply. How had no one known or stopped what was happening to Ethan? More research showed that Marcus had been unemployed for years. He lived alone with Ethan after the death of Ethan's mother, Lisa Hale, 2 years earlier. The circumstances of Lisa's death were unclear, and the files were incomplete. Some reports hinted at an accident, but there were whispers in the community that the situation was more complicated. Nobody had ever investigated deeply, and the truth seemed hidden. Daniels visited the neighborhood to talk to people again, hoping to find someone who could give a clearer picture. Many neighbors were reluctant to speak. They remembered hearing loud noises and angry shouting from Marcus's house, but were too afraid to get involved. "He was scary," one neighbor said quietly. "You didn't want to cross him." Another neighbor added, "I always thought the kids were just quiet because they were scared." Despite their fear, some people began to open up after hearing that Ethan was safe. A few admitted they had suspected something was wrong but didn't know how to help. They felt guilty for not acting sooner. Daniels understood their fear but hoped their stories would help the investigation. Meanwhile, Ethan was still in the hospital. Although he was healing physically, the emotional wounds were deep. He didn't talk much but often stared into space, lost in his thoughts. Daniels visited him daily, bringing toys and books to distract the boy and help him feel less alone. Slowly, Ethan began to respond. He smiled faintly when Daniels told stories or played simple games. These small moments brought hope. The hospital staff arranged for child psychologists to work with Ethan. The therapists helped him feel safe and began the difficult process of helping him remember what had happened without overwhelming him. Ethan's memories were confusing and painful, but with gentle care, he started to speak about his life with Marcus. He told them how Marcus would get angry over small things, like spilled milk or broken toys, and punish him severely. Ethan described being locked in a dark room for hours, sometimes days, with no one to talk to or comfort him. He explained that Marcus controlled everything, kept him away from other children, and never let him leave the house. These stories confirmed what the officers and doctors had suspected. Ethan's suffering had lasted for a long time, and the abuse had become worse over time. It was a heartbreaking story of loneliness and fear. Back at the police station, the detectives discovered new evidence that shocked even them. During a search of Marcus's house, they had found hidden videos stored on an old laptop. The footage showed Marcus punishing Ethan in cruel ways. The videos were painful to watch, but they were important proof for the case. Marcus had recorded some of the abuse himself. This evidence helped the police build a strong case against him. The day Marcus was arrested was tense. Officers found him at a friend's house, trying to hide. When he saw the police, he did not resist but looked angry and defiant. During questioning, Marcus denied everything, saying the bruises were accidents and that he loved Ethan. But the evidence was too strong. The officers knew the truth, and so did Marcus. As the case moved to court, Daniels prepared to testify. He remembered the day Ethan ran to him, crying and hurt. He recalled the shock of seeing the boy's chest covered with bruises and blood. Daniels wanted to tell the court everything, to make sure Marcus could not hurt Ethan or any other child again. The trial was difficult for everyone. Ethan was too young and scared to testify, but the evidence was clear. The videos, the medical reports, and witness statements painted a dark picture of abuse and neglect. Marcus's lawyers tried to weaken the case, but the truth was undeniable. The main community watched closely. Many felt anger and sadness, but also relief that justice was finally being served. Daniels felt a mix of emotions. He was proud to help save Ethan, but saddened by the pain the boy had suffered. While the legal process was underway, Ethan began to heal more each day. He was placed in foster care with a kind family who gave him a warm, safe home. But he still missed having someone close like Officer Daniels, who had become a steady presence in his life. Daniels visited Ethan regularly, bringing comfort and hope. Ethan's therapy sessions continued. With time, he started to smile more and even laughed sometimes. He made friends at school and learned to trust people again. The road to healing was long, but Ethan's quiet courage inspired everyone around him. Daniels also began to think about Ethan's future. He wanted to do more than just help the boy survive. He wanted Ethan to thrive. He considered becoming Ethan's legal guardian, to give him a permanent, loving home. It was a big step, but Daniels felt ready to take it for Ethan's sake. Meanwhile, Marcus awaited sentencing. The court listened to all the evidence and heard testimonies from doctors, officers, and neighbors. Marcus showed no remorse, but the judge was clear. Marcus was sentenced to many years in prison, ensuring he would not harm Ethan or any other child again. With Marcus behind bars, the community felt a sense of justice. But for Daniels and Ethan, the work was not over. They focused on rebuilding a life filled with safety, trust, and love. Ethan's story became an important reminder for the town about the signs of child abuse and the importance of speaking up. Daniels worked with local groups to raise awareness and support families in need. Through the darkest times, Ethan showed a quiet strength. His journey from pain to hope was difficult but inspiring. With Daniels by his side and a caring community around him, Ethan's future was finally bright. After the court sentenced Marcus Hale to prison, Ethan's life slowly began to change in ways he had never imagined before. the small boy who had once run crying to Officer Daniels, was now in a new world, a world filled with hope, care, and kindness. But this new life did not come easily. Ethan still carried the heavy weight of his past, and the journey to healing was long and filled with many challenges. Ethan lived with a foster family who treated him like their own child. The family, the Parkers, were patient and gentle. They understood that Ethan had been through terrible things, and they wanted to help him feel safe again. At first, Ethan was very quiet around them. He didn't trust easily. Sometimes he would flinch at loud noises or sudden movements. Sometimes he refused to eat, or would hide in his room, afraid to be near anyone. Mrs. Parker would sit with Ethan for hours, reading stories or just being there quietly so he knew someone cared. She never forced him to talk but let him open up when he was ready. The Parkers had other children too, and though Ethan was shy, he slowly started to watch them play and sometimes joined in. Those moments of laughter and fun were new for Ethan, and they helped him feel a little more like a normal kid. Officer Daniels kept visiting Ethan regularly. He brought toys, books, and sometimes even treats. He told Ethan stories about his own childhood and how sometimes life can be hard, but there's always hope for a better future. Daniels didn't want to be just the police officer who rescued Ethan. He wanted to be a friend, someone who would stand by him no matter what. Ethan's therapy sessions continued at a nearby clinic. His therapist, Mrs. Williams, was very kind and patient. She helped Ethan find words for his feelings and fears, things the boy had never been able to say before. Some days, Ethan would cry during therapy as he remembered the dark room and the times he was hurt by his father. But with each session, he grew a little stronger. Mrs. Williams taught Ethan ways to relax when he felt scared or anxious. She showed him how to take deep breaths, how to imagine a safe place, and how to tell himself that he was not alone anymore. These tools helped Ethan calm down during his nightmares and bad days. School was another big challenge. Ethan had never been to school before and didn't know how to be around many children. On his first day, he was scared and shy. He held Mrs. Parker's hand tightly and didn't want to let go, but the teacher was kind and gentle. She introduced Ethan to a few classmates who helped him feel welcome. The children were curious about Ethan, but treated him nicely. Slowly, Ethan began to smile more at school and started making a few friends. Still, Ethan struggled with trust. Sometimes he would become angry or upset without knowing why. He didn't like loud noises or sudden touches. These reactions were signs of his trauma, and Mrs. Williams worked with Ethan and his foster family to understand and support him. Officer Daniels noticed the changes in Ethan every time he visited. From the scared little boy who clung to him, Ethan was becoming stronger and more confident. Daniels felt proud but also knew the road ahead was still long. Outside the home and hospital, the community began to change too. Inspired by Ethan's story, local organizations and residents started programs to protect children from abuse and help families in need. There were workshops for parents about healthy ways to handle stress and anger, support groups for victims of abuse, and campaigns to teach neighbors to watch for signs of trouble. Daniels took a leading role in these programs. He spoke at schools and community centers, sharing Ethan's story, without names or details that could hurt the boy, to raise awareness. He wanted everyone to understand that abuse could happen anywhere, and that it was everyone's responsibility to protect children. At the same time, Ethan's legal case was not entirely over. Though Marcus was in prison, there were still questions about Ethan's future. Could he stay with the Parkers forever? Could he have a permanent home? Officer Daniels thought about these questions often. He had grown very close to Ethan and wanted to do more. He started talking with social workers and lawyers about the possibility of becoming Ethan's legal guardian. It was a big decision, and Daniels wanted to be sure he could provide the love and stability Ethan needed. In the meantime, Ethan was learning about trust and friendship little by little. He learned to laugh, to play, and even to dream about the future. One day, he told Mrs. Parker that he wanted to be a policeman like Daniels when he grew up. "I want to help kids," he said shyly. Mrs. Parker smiled and said, "That's a wonderful dream, Ethan." Ethan also started to ask questions about his past. He wanted to know about his mother and why she was gone. These questions were hard for Daniels to answer, but he told Ethan the truth gently, that his mother had died, but that many people cared for him now and would protect him. As Ethan's confidence grew, he began to stand up for himself more. He started to tell adults when he felt scared or unhappy. He learned that it was okay to ask for help. Throughout all of this, Officer Daniels continued to be a constant presence. He celebrated Ethan's small victories: a good day at school, a smile after a tough night, a new friend made. Daniels believed that every step forward was a victory over the darkness of Ethan's past. Ethan's story touched many hearts. Local newspapers wrote about his journey, focusing on hope and courage. Donations and volunteers helped the foster families and child protection programs grow stronger. The town started to feel safer and more connected. But Daniels never forgot that behind every story like Ethan's, there could be many others still waiting for help. He worked tirelessly to ensure that no child would suffer alone again. Ethan's journey was a powerful example of how kindness, patience, and love could heal even the deepest wounds. Though the scars of his past would always be part of him, Ethan was learning to live again, free from fear, full of hope, and surrounded by people who cared. The days grew brighter for Ethan. He played outside with other children, enjoyed his favorite books, and even started to dream about a happy future. With Daniels, the Parkers, and his therapists by his side, Ethan's life was slowly turning into a story of strength and survival. Ethan's story, though painful, was far from over. The little boy who once ran crying to Officer Daniels had come a long way, but the journey toward a full life, one filled with happiness, trust, and hope, was still unfolding. With each passing day, Ethan faced new challenges, new discoveries about himself, and new opportunities to grow stronger. After months living with the Parker family, Ethan began to show signs of true healing. The fear and sadness that had weighed so heavily on his heart started to lift, replaced by moments of joy and curiosity. He was no longer just a scared child hiding away, but someone beginning to believe in the goodness of the world. One of the biggest changes was Ethan's growing love for school. At first, school had been a place full of unknowns, loud noises, and unfamiliar faces. Now, it had become a place where Ethan felt welcome and safe. He made friends, learned new things, and even started to enjoy reading and drawing. His teachers noticed his quiet determination and praised his efforts. During breaks, Ethan loved to play with the other children. He was still shy sometimes, but was learning how to join in, laugh, and share. Playtime was more than just fun. It was a way for Ethan to practice being a kid, something he had missed so much in his early years. At home, Ethan grew closer to the Parkers every day. They treated him like a son, providing warmth, care, and stability he had never known before. They celebrated his small victories with hugs and cheers, like when he mastered tying his shoelaces or when he got a gold star at school. These moments built Ethan's confidence and helped him trust that he was loved. Officer Daniels remained a special person in Ethan's life. He had become more than just a police officer to the boy. He was a protector, a mentor, and a friend. Daniels spent time teaching Ethan about safety, kindness, and the importance of standing up for oneself and others. He listened when Ethan needed to talk, and celebrated when Ethan shared his dreams. Ethan's dream was simple, but powerful. He wanted to be a policeman someday, just like Daniels. "I want to help kids," he said often. This dream was a sign of how far Ethan had come, from a frightened boy running for help to a child who wanted to make a difference in the world. The legal battles surrounding Ethan's future continued quietly in the background. Officer Daniels had started the process to become Ethan's legal guardian, wanting to give him a permanent home filled with love and care. This was a big step for both of them, but it felt right. Daniels was committed to protecting Ethan, not just as a police officer but as family. Ethan's therapists and doctors watched his progress with hope. Though the scars of his early life remained, Ethan's mind and heart were healing. Therapy sessions focused on building resilience and helping Ethan understand his feelings. He learned how to cope with memories that sometimes surfaced unexpectedly and how to feel safe in his body and mind. Nightmares and fears still came occasionally, but with the support around him, Ethan was learning to face them. He used the calming techniques taught by his therapist and found comfort in the people who loved him. The community, inspired by Ethan's story, continued to grow stronger and more supportive. Local schools introduced programs about kindness, empathy, and child safety. Parents attended workshops to learn how to create healthy, loving homes. Social workers and volunteers worked together to find children who needed help before it was too late. Officer Daniels often spoke at these events, sharing lessons learned from Ethan's story without revealing personal details. His message was clear: every child deserves safety, love, and a chance to grow. Daniels worked with other officers to improve how child abuse cases were handled, making sure victims like Ethan received immediate help. As Ethan grew older, he began to understand more about his past. It was painful, but knowing the truth helped him feel less confused and alone. He asked questions about his mother, about why his father had hurt him, and about what would happen next. Daniels and the Parkers answered these questions honestly and gently, helping Ethan make sense of his feelings. School became a place where Ethan's future took shape. He loved learning about people who helped others, firefighters, doctors, teachers, and thought about how he could be one of them. His dream of becoming a policeman stayed strong, fueled by the hope that he could protect other children from harm. Ethan also discovered new talents. He enjoyed drawing and storytelling, using art to express emotions that were sometimes too hard to say aloud. Mrs. Parker encouraged these creative outlets, helping Ethan build self-confidence and a positive sense of identity. Friendships blossomed, too. Ethan learned how to be a good friend, listening, sharing, and supporting others. He found that kindness could heal not only his own heart, but also the hearts of those around him. These friendships gave him joy and a sense of belonging. Throughout all this, the bond between Ethan and Officer Daniels deepened. Daniels remained a steady source of strength and encouragement. He helped Ethan understand that it was okay to ask for help and that no one had the right to hurt him. Daniels' presence reassured Ethan that he was not alone. One special day, Daniels officially became Ethan's legal guardian. This was a moment of great joy and relief. Ethan felt safe knowing he had a permanent home with someone who loved and cared for him deeply. Daniels promised to always protect and support Ethan, no matter what. Ethan's journey was a powerful reminder that even the darkest pasts could lead to bright futures. The boy who had once run crying to a police officer was now growing into a strong, kind, and hopeful young person. His story inspired many in the community to stand against child abuse and to work toward a world where every child could live free from fear. Ethan knew there would still be challenges ahead. Healing was a journey, not a destination. But with the love of the Parkers, the support of Officer Daniels, the care of his therapists, and the friendships he had made, Ethan faced the future with courage. His dreams were no longer just wishes, but goals he worked toward every day. Ethan wanted to grow up, help others, and make sure no child ever felt as alone or scared as he once had. His story was one of survival, strength, and hope. A story that showed how kindness and love could change a life forever.